Welcome in, everybody, to our first weekly NFL Power Rankings video of the 2022 NFL season. With Week 1 behind us, we got some exciting football to react to and hopefully not overreact to. That's always something you got to be careful with Week 1. It's Overreaction Tuesday here, I suppose, on September 13th. But yeah, we're going to have some fun here. Before we dive in, please do take a moment to find that like button down below. Just takes a second, and it's a free and easy way to support my channel in a really meaningful way. I really appreciate it. Just take a second, and let's go ahead and get started. Starting at the bottom of my power rankings, a new team. By the way, we are going off of my preseason deep dive power rankings. So a new team already at the bottom, and it is related to quarterback injuries, something you've got to, I think, reflect in a power ranking like this. So the New York Jets will find themselves with the 32nd ranking in the league and a part of this bottom tier, which is a deep pit of sadness. The offense was not fun to watch with Joe Flacco, and until Zach Wilson gets back, I don't expect it to be a very functional football team. I still thought the defense was a little bit toothless as well, so it sucks for the Jets and Jets fans, but man, until proven otherwise, I think this is the worst team in the NFL at the moment. And my next team is really going to surprise some people as well, dropping 18 spots from my preseason rankings. That's the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott going to miss a substantial amount of time. Sounds like at least 2 weeks, could be more. And beyond that, this team's a disaster. They've already suffered a bunch of injuries. This defense, played well. Micah Parsons is a stud, but how much can this team carry them with Cooper Rush? I don't think very far, and I think you can make a case they're even worse than the Jets right now. So, it makes sense when you really think about it. They'll find themselves back up into the teens probably when Dak is healthy, but man, you can't like reasonably rank them much higher than this at this point in time. This team's going to stink for a couple weeks here. So that's my bottom tier. It's this deep pit of sadness with injured quarterbacks and lousy football teams for the next few weeks here. But now we're going to get into my next tier, which are going to be my feisty underdogs. Really a cluster of teams that put up really hard fights. Some of them pulled off upsets, some of them didn't. But I will say I feel pretty good about the order in which I had really our next 6 teams coming into the year. So I'll just reveal it here. We've got the Texans at 30, the Jags at 29, the Bears at 28, the Falcons at 27, the Seahawks at 26, and the Giants at 25. We'll run through each of those individually, but I didn't see any specific thing from any one team to basically change how I felt about these teams in that specific order coming in. So the Texans at 30, yes, they did tie the Colts, came out with a good start, but they did get outclassed by about 200 yards in that game. The Colts had a hard time punching the ball into the end zone, and I do think the Texans did a pretty poor job to let them back in that game. So I would say if Zach Wilson and Dak Prescott were healthy, the Texans would still be my bottom-ranked team. But hey, good scrappy performance, as we know this is a scrappy football team. We got the Jags at 29. Just big mistakes and poor defense, and Trevor Lawrence actually missing some throws this week. This team just has so much work to do. No way around it. Now the Bears at 28. Weird game. Definitely didn't see that one coming. That was where I was most wrong this week, was I thought the Niners would steamroll the Bears. Well, Matt Eberflus's defense performed valiantly. That is the one thing that I was really optimistic about this team, was how good of a job Matt Eberflus would do. And it showed right away. Hung in there against Kyle Shanahan offense. Great work there. And Justin Fields, man, some impeccable big-time plays to win that game for the Bears in the second half. So big week for the Bears, jumping up a couple spots. And then the Falcons, +2. The offense, Arthur Smith, I think showed why I have confidence in Arthur Smith. Marcus Mariota played pretty well. I don't think this team is going to be an outright disaster, but obviously a team that has a long way to go. Then the Seahawks, +2, was a game that I actually said coming in, don't be surprised if the Seahawks, with some weird energy in the building, pull off an upset. Geno Smith was fantastic. So if we get that Geno every single week, I think the Seahawks are going to be a little bit more legitimate than this, let's face it, basically bottom tier here. But definitely have my attention. Geno Smith played really well in the first half, not so much in the second half. And that defense was pretty scrappy for Pete Carroll. So the Seahawks making some noise here week 1. And then the Giants going in, pulling off the upset on the Titans. This team was really playing hard for Brian Daboll, and I love Brian Daboll. A little bit of a theme with some of these teams in this tier, just exciting new coaches that I like, but rosters that I'm not ready to jump on the hype train quite yet. Knowing that we had so many major concerns about some of these teams. So those are our feisty underdogs. Going to be excited to see kind of who might continue to climb, who shows their true colors, because some of these guys will do a little bit of both. Then we have just a couple teams in my next tier here. These are my long shots, my playoff long shots. It's going to be the Carolina Panthers at 24. Still have a lot to learn about what Baker's going to look like on this team. I felt like the first few drives were just kind of wasted by poor play calling that we can expect to be an issue for this team with McAdoo as the offensive coordinator, but just, penalties, sloppy play early on, and then they did kick into gear and almost beat the Browns, so I'm not quite giving up on the Panthers yet, but obviously a lot of stuff to work on themselves. And then the Detroit Lions, man, Dan Campbell, those guys, they can coach offense. They showed it last year. They got even more talent to work with here. They put up 35 points, almost come back and beat the Eagles. Still so fascinated by this Lions team. They're actually going to climb up a spot in my rankings with Dallas and Dak's injury there. So those are my playoff long shots. Then we're going to get into those more kind of playoff fringe teams that have a lot of stuff to clean up or a lot more to prove before we look at them as more playoff caliber types. And that's going to start with the New England Patriots, who are going to drop 4 spots in my rankings. The play calling was a concern. What was it going to look like with Matt Patricia and this weird coaching staff? And it's a problem right now. This offense just doesn't have the explosiveness, and losing Josh McDaniels does feel like it's going to be a big deal for this team. And the defense can only go so far. It's not like it's a defense overloaded with superstars either. So this team is still coached by Bill Belichick. I'm not going to write him off, but what an ugly first week for the Patriots. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers would have climbed up if it were not for TJ Watt tearing his pack and is going to miss the season. That's pretty straightforward. I mean, it was an impressive win by Mike Tomlin. It was the kind of win that we know this team is capable of, and will probably continue to pull off some upsets in similar fashion, but it's not like the offense was great. You lose your defensive player of the year. It's a huge loss, and there's no way around it, man. It's a buzzkill off after beating the Bengals in overtime. The Washington Commanders are basically going to jump up 3 spots by default here. I thought Wentz, Wentz kind of did what I think most Commanders fans would hope Wentz is going to be this year. Some explosive plays, and just kind of some good highs, and you can expect those lows as well. An ugly second half, but showed kind of why Washington likes him and what he can do with some playmakers. They had a productive week offensively. So a team that, good to get in the win column, 1-0. No Chase Young back yet, so not out of it. That's for damn sure, especially with how that NFC East looks right now. Then the Arizona Cardinals actually going to stay put. Man, they're just undermanned right now. So many injuries. They ran into a buzzsaw with the Kansas City Chiefs, who were just on fire, but they're not a team without question marks. And it's the play calling. It's how much can Kyler do. Kyler's not some elite quarterback. He's not going to carry this team every single week. And my take that this was the worst defense in the NFL coming into the year, something Cardinals fans were not crazy about, obviously. That's looking kind of like a good take right now after week 1. Granted, it was the Chiefs, but a lot of worries with the physicality of this team, and they got steamrolled. Their defense just rolled over from the get-go against the Chiefs. So they kind of were who we thought they were. Flipping it back on the Cardinals here.
The Bears are who we thought they were. And that's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
But I think the Cardinals have some better days ahead, but obviously a lot to clean up. The Tennessee Titans going to drop down 2 after losing to the New York Giants. Just kind of let them back in the game late. And Saquon, man, I didn't mention Saquon for the Giants, but good to see him back. But yeah, Titans just feel like kind of a middling team that lost too many pieces in the offseason, losing Harold Landry right away. Like, I just don't know if they have enough firepower led by Ryan Tannehill to be great. Then the Cleveland Browns, this is weird. You know, they technically came in 11th in my preseason power rankings. We were trying to wait out the Deshaun Watson situation. 17 is actually where I had them when I released my week 1 rankings on Patreon last week. So whatever way you want to look at it, and that's obviously going to shift the movement of everyone else around them. But yeah, technically dropping down 6 or holding on to their 17th ranking, whichever way you want to slice it. An explosive defense, a really good run game. Did not think Jacoby Brissett played all that well, so they're just going to have to really do what they did this week, try and scrap out wins, lean on that roster talent and the coaching until Watson gets back. And you know, that's kind of the outlook for the Browns, and I think they'll probably stay around this 17 mark unless they go on some crazy winning streak, but I think they'll be trading wins, hovering around this spot for a while now, until week 13 or whatever it is. We'll see, though. Before we go any further, I just want to take a second to tell you about my friends at SeatGeek. I've really enjoyed working with them at SeatGeek. I think they are the best run ticketing app out there, and I use them to buy all of my tickets, Twins games, NFL games down the road in other cities, concerts, you name it. And I really think you guys should use SeatGeek as well. You're going to get the best prices there anyway. I think they have the best customer service. Like I said, the best user interface. I just think they're the best ticketing app out there. I've enjoyed partnering with them. And now, if you use promo code FranchiseGuy, you can save $20 on your first purchase there. And most importantly, you'll support my channel in the process. So win, win, win. And yeah, that's promo code FranchiseGuy on SeatGeek. Check it out. Back to the video. Then we have a new tier, and this is a couple teams I didn't really know what to do with. I think these two teams are better than that group we just talked about, so I'm going to tier them apart. But they're two teams with quarterbacks that I just need to see a lot more from. And that starts with the Miami Dolphins at 16. And that defense was really good to see them humming. That was, I guess, a question mark with Brian Flores leaving. Was the defense going to resume? And it absolutely did. The scheme looked the same. Those guys balled out and took care of business, forcing turnovers, doing all the same stuff they normally do. And that was really big to see for the Dolphins. You know, I thought offensively they looked like what we can expect from them. A ton of short passes, Waddle and Hill making plays after the catch, and Tua just trying to avoid as many mistakes as possible. Still tried to make a few in the fourth quarter, but, you know, Tua, that I think is going to be a good Tua game as we look back on this season. His stat sheet looks good, a lot of run after catch, contested catches, and lean on the defense. And I don't know how far they can go. Still didn't think Tua looked amazing, but, you know, he wasn't bad either. So a big boost for the Dolphins. I feel like I always have this negative tone with the Dolphins because Dolphins fans are very loud. Tua fans are very loud. It was a big week for the Dolphins. We'll see what they look like when the opposing offense can push back. Then we have the New Orleans Saints, going to stay put at 15. Get the win against the Falcons. I would say it was far from an impressive win. It took some late game heroics. Was good to see Jameis kind of heat up. Really impressive comeback. If you got Game Pass, if you can just watch the fourth quarter, Jameis was a blast. These Saints receivers really got on fire. All three of them, Olave, Landry, and, of course, Michael Thomas. So good to see them kind of get the offense going late, but it really wasn't much early on. And I just need to see more from Jameis to truly trust this offense. They're staying put at 15. Then we have the Raiders kicking off a new tier with the 14th ranking, and this kicks off our playoff caliber teams. And based on what I saw from Derek Carr this week, I'm hesitant. Derek Carr was horrible in that game. Like, I'm sorry, he just was. There were missed throws. There were horrible reads, 2 of them that led to interceptions. The same old Derek Carr being timid and unable to navigate and manipulate pressures on critical downs, like actual pressure from the pass rush. It was a horrible performance from Derek Carr, and if he plays like that the Raiders are screwed, man. They don't stand a chance in this division, and they got to show more. I mean, it was good to see Devontae Adams play well. Max Crosby had a big game. Like, the defense wasn't horrible, but Derek Carr's got to be better. I think he can be better, but yikes, man, yikes. We got the Minnesota Vikings, our highest risers of the week, and a lot of that is circumstance, right? The Browns falling, some other teams being much less impressive, but an even bigger part of it is how good and how healthy the Vikings are and look right now. You got those pass rushers who both had big weeks, Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith. The secondary in pretty good shape right now. The vets, Harrison Smith looked good at 32, 33 years old. Big week again, superstar safety. And Kirk Cousins was awesome, man. Justin Jefferson kicks off what could be an offensive player of the year type of season. So good to see Kevin O'Connell come in. The play calling looked really good. Just good vibes for the Vikes right now, and I think this is a fair ranking at 13. And they're going to be facing my number 12 ranked team next Monday, so we might get to settle this here. The Eagles jumping up 5 spots. Good to see that offense rolling. Nick Sirianni really leaning into A.J. Brown, who was a monster this week as well. Defense, not quite what you would have hoped to see from the Eagles, so that's something that, going against a Vikings offense that looked pretty good last week. It's going to be a really fun Monday Night Football game, but big weeks for the Eagles and the Vikings are two highest risers right there with the Dolphins this week. Big vibes, I think getting themselves into playoff contention, especially when you look at the NFC, where pretty much all the top dogs in the NFC had bad weeks. The only team that didn't, the Bucs, suffered some big injuries. So, the Vikings and the Eagles are certainly in the mix at the top of the NFC playoff picture at the moment here in week 1. And then we got the Broncos. This is, getting a +1 on a technicality with the Browns dropping below them, technically. But obviously I'm not really worried about the Broncos. I don't really want to go there. I didn't think Russ looked bad. They struggled to punch the ball in from the goal line a couple times. We knew that was going to be a weird game. You're not feeling better about it. You hate that they botched the end of game situation. I mean, I would have put the ball in Russ's hands to get 5 yards instead of kicking a 64-yard field goal. But I think even more criticism needs to be deserved for letting the clock run down to 20 seconds when they still had all 3 timeouts. They could have kicked the field goal, and if they missed it, they would have had 3 timeouts to try and get the ball back and get in position to kick another big field goal. So obviously some clock management issues with Denver there, but I'm not going to act like I'm concerned about Denver. They lost. It stinks. It's week 1. It was a weird game in Seattle. We all kind of knew the second that popped on the schedule that it could be an upset, and it was. So I'm not worried about the Broncos. They'll be okay. Then we got the Colts at 10. Slow start. Another team, like the Broncos, had a hard time finishing drives, but they did have 200 more yards than the Texans. Fired into gear late in that game. I still think this defense is going to be pretty damn good, and they bunkered down late in that game. You wish they could have finished things off and sealed the deal for the win in the end, but I think the Colts as well. Good perseverance this week in what was looking like a surefire loss, and I think they'll bounce back pretty well. They're going to hold that 10th ranking that we had on them coming in. Then the San Francisco 49ers, and this is the one team here that I think I will admit, I was wrong. Not going to say their season's done or they can't go on to win the Super Bowl this year. I still think they have that sort of upside, but this was a team I was really, really high on, and I came out and I was like, bet on the Niners. I don't care that it's raining. I don't care that Kittle's out. They're going to steamroll the Bears. And through the first 10 minutes, it looked pretty good. And that Niners defense is no joke, man. Outside of Dre Greenlaw, who needed to be benched in that game at some point, really blowing some coverages and some stupid mistakes, that defense was lights out for the majority of every play in that game. So I still really like this Niners defense, but man, I was wrong about this offense being pretty good, at least out the gate. They, again, still have potential. Trey Lance in the rain, on the road, first start as a full-time franchise QB or whatever. But the reality is they have a lot of stuff to figure out. I don't know if they have too much of an identity right now. So, I still like the Niners, but this is the one team that I really look at and I'm like, I think I was genuinely wrong about them coming in. And week 1 was rough. So they're going to drop down 5 spots and could be due for more loss if they don't turn this thing around quickly. I also think there might be some overreactions given the weather conditions that could have thrown some stuff off. I think we need another week of sample size on the Niners. But we are now going to get into the top 8, and that's going to commence our Super Bowl caliber tier. But teams that are either dealing with some injuries right now or have some stuff to clean up before their tier 1 teams again. So we've got the Bengals at number 8. Just a bunch of mistakes from Joe Burrow in the first 3 quarters of that game, really. I mean, he would be the first one to tell you that he played like ass. You don't expect that from a guy that I view as a top 6 quarterback in the NFL. And, I don't think that's going to be the norm. I still think Jamar Chase is incredible. That defense played pretty well and hung in there. Granted, it was against Mitch Trubisky. Zach Taylor's play calling to me is still a question mark, but I still feel pretty good about the Bengals where I had them coming in. So we're gonna hold them down at 8, which I think is a good ranking for them right now. Then the LA Rams dropping down 1. You got to remember, I had them at 6, which was lower than most people had them coming into the year as the defending Super Bowl champs, and they looked like shit in the opener. The offensive line couldn't block anyone. Matthew Stafford looked like he was playing injured, or at least was the bad, streaky version of himself. Couldn't get Allen Robinson going. The defense was patched up, like had a lot of holes on it. Man, I don't want to overreact to week 1, and the Bills looked great. It was tied at halftime. But the Rams do not look like they are poised for a repeat season. They are going to get some respect based on what they accomplished last year and how good of a coach Sean McVay is. Don't want to overreact to week 1, but they got to turn this thing around quickly. As do the Green Bay Packers. They're going to drop down 1. I did not expect them to go into Minnesota and win, so it wasn't a huge surprise. And man, if Christian Watson catches that opening throw from Rodgers, that who knows how that game changes, because that was a 75-yard touchdown that could have completely changed the landscape of the game, but he didn't, and that's the thing, right? They have got to figure out this wide receiver situation. If they can figure that out, I think they'll be just fine. So you got the MVP, your 10-point favorites at home against the Bears. Nice opportunity for a bounce-back week. If they really suck against the Bears, then we can start to panic about the Packers' offensive situation. I also don't think this defense and Joe Barry are free of criticism as well. I think they have some very serious. They need to take a very serious look in the mirror. You have one of the best secondaries in the NFL, and they're terrified to run man coverage. It's just freaking stupid. Like, I just don't know if Joe Barry's it, man. You can't just drop into cover 6 every time and cover 4 and expect a smart quarterback to not know what he's looking at. Like, they gotta mix things up defensively, because they have so much talent, too much talent to not be one of the best defenses in the NFL, and the Vikings mostly pick them apart. And then we got the Chargers at number 5, really taking advantage of some of these other teams showing more deficiencies, I think. I just don't have as many questions about the Chargers as I do the Packers or the Rams right now. They're not a perfect team. I still think if they go against a legitimate offensive line, we'll get to see the interior of that Chargers defense get tested a little bit more. But good to see Khalil Mack out there. Awesome week. Was a question at his age, was he going to look like the old Khalil Mack? I think he did. Honestly, looked better than Joey Bosa in that one, and against the Raiders. And Justin Herbert, dude, was so good in that game against the Raiders. Keenan Allen goes down in the first half, and he hung in there and made some big time throws, avoided mistakes, and Chargers look really good, as do the Baltimore Ravens, climbing up 3 spots as well. Just another team that I just don't have that many question marks about. Lamar looked awesome. Yeah, you got a contract situation, whatever. Doesn't matter. Lamar comes out, drops some freaking dimes, runs around, makes plays. Devin Duvernay looks like a breakout season's finally going to happen for him. One of my dudes. And then that defense, really fun to see what they were doing with McDonald, the new defensive coordinator. Thought they really mixed up their fronts. It's interesting to see a Ravens defense coming out in like a 4-3 over front, 4 men with their hand in the dirt. They've been 3-4 for so long, mixing up. They did some 3-4, did some 4-3, nickel, you name it. But really excited to continue watching this Ravens team develop. Then we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are actually going to be a part of this tier because the injuries are really starting to stack up. Obviously, you lost Ryan Jensen, and I think they were poised to overcome that. But now Donovan Smith looks like he's going to miss some time. Chris Godwin's going to miss some time. It's a lot of injuries on that offense, and we really saw that offensive line getting picked apart. And that's something that, if you can get to Tom Brady, if his offensive line is not what he's accustomed to, this just isn't the same explosive offense that they can be. So until they get some of those guys back healthy, I would not put them in the same tier as the Bills and the Chiefs, and I think that's pretty fair. And then we have our top tier, when is the AFC Championship tier. These guys are insane. And after Thursday Night Football, I thought I would for sure have the Bills number one because they looked incredible, and the Chiefs did everything they could to make me look good for ranking them ahead of the Bills, or at least justify me having them ahead of the Bills. I think either way, whoever you have here, I'm totally fine with it. Both teams have demigods at quarterbacks. Thought both teams' defenses played really well. These teams both seem to answer any of the questions that they did have coming into the year. And until proven otherwise, these are the two best teams in the NFL. So I do have Bills 2, Chiefs 1, incredibly tight. And wins the AFC Championship. Thank you, everybody, for watching. That's the Week 2 Power Rankings. We'll have these every single Tuesday at 8 a.m. Eastern, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of these or any of my other NFL content coming your way. Make sure you hit that like button as well. It really helps me out, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace out.